2022. We cordially invite you to be seated, as in a few minutes, the Keynote Session 4 will begin.
We are now proceeding to the Keynote Session 4. We will hear the presentations of Professor Alison Clark-Wilson from the University College London, and her session will be chaired by Dr. Farida Nurhasana from SEAMEO QITEP in Mathematics. Kindly be invited to the stage, Dr. Farida Nurhasana.
Good afternoon and welcome back to the stage, Ibu. Please allow me to read your short biography before we start the Keynote Session 4. Dr. Farida Nurhasana is a lecturer from 11 Maret University who has been serving as the Deputy Director of Program of SEAMEO QITEP in Mathematics since 2020. She pursued her master's degree in Mathematics Education from Indonesia University of Education before obtaining her doctoral degree from the same university in 2018. In 2014, the mother of four was awarded Sandwich-like scholarship at National Institute of Education, Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. Ibu Farida Nurhasana, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Yoga and Ms. Lely, for the kind introductions. The Honorable our keynote speakers, Professor Allisons, the distinguished participants who attend this event offline here, and also the distinguished participants who attend the 7th SEAMEO in online platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay. It is very nice to be here again as the moderator of the last keynote session for me. And today we are very honored because we have Professor Alison Clark-Wilson from University College London to be the last keynote speakers for us. Now I would like to say hello. Hello, Professor Allison.
Good afternoon, Dr. Farida, and thank you very much for the kind invitation.
Okay, Dr. Allison, before we start our sessions, please let me introduce you to our esteemed participant first. Professor Alison Clark-Wilson, trained to teach secondary school mathematics in the United Kingdom during the early 19th and become an advanced skill teacher who specialized in the use of innovative technology. So basically, Professor Allison has a great experiences as a teacher here. And then, because of her curiosity and creativity, led her to work on a number of national and international curriculum development projects that aims to make mathematics more accessible to all learners through engaging and contact-based mathematics activities that bring concepts to life, especially in algebra. Now, Professor Allison is a professional research fellow at the University College London in Knowledge Laboratory. And her research interests concern more both on how to scale and sustain the classroom use of dynamic mathematics technologies. Sikim's also very delighted because has an experience to work together with Professor Allison's previous years, okay, in Cornerstone Math. So we have that, and probably some of the teachers participated in the program also as the participants of this event, Professor Allison's. And so see, working on the use of dynamic mathematics technologies alongside leading UCL research impact and engagement work as a founding member of the European Education Technology Network. A recent relevant publication is in the open access survey paper. It is published on the one of the oldest mathematics education journal, ZDMs, with the title of Mathematics Education on the theme Teaching Mathematics with Digital Technologies. So, Professor Ellison, you have about 45 minutes to present your presentation today. And then after that, we will have a question and answer sessions. And then for the audience, if you have any questions, you can just directly post it, or you can also raise your hand for the audience who are attend this event offline here in the main room. Okay, without further ado, the time is yours, Professor Ellison.
Thank you very much indeed. And I'm absolutely delighted to have this opportunity to present my work to the audience. It's a theme that for me is very significant and poignant. So I hope that through my keynote, I can perhaps bring some urgency to this need for us to re-image numeracy learning. And I'm going to talk about it through the lens of student use of technology. So yes, the teachers are certainly involved, but primarily I'm very interested in how we can support students to use technology to allow them to really get at the nuts and bolts of mathematics, to understand the concepts, to develop curiosity, and to really engage in a subject which has so much power to help us as humans both make sense of the world that we live in, but also to make some of the important decisions we will need to make as humans such that we can survive and thrive on this world. And this is something that falls to the responsibility of all of us because we all have a part to play. So it's a very big call to action. You know, we think often the school curriculum is very static. It is something that is decided by politicians or by curriculum organizations, and we as teachers or as parents or as learners have little to say in the direction that it takes. And I feel very strongly that we all have to embrace the sort of mathematics curriculum and the numeracy learning that would come from that. We all have to be part of this discussion because it's a really important topic for the world. So I break my keynote into 3 parts. I'd like to say a little bit more on that theme about, you know, what are the mathematical needs of learners and society in 2022, and what are they likely to be in 2030, 2050, 2070, 2100 for our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. What is the legacy of our work that we will leave to ensure that we have a sustainable mathematics curriculum that is going to meet the needs of both individual learners and our societies? I'll then move on to give you some, to help you re-image. So Dr. Farida mentioned some of the work that we've been doing here in the UK and globally, but what are the sorts of experiences that children might have that might create a mathematics that has a clearer purpose or a better place in our schools? And then most importantly, we can all dream, we can all have a vision, but if we don't have a sense of how we might get there and what it takes to get there, then it will stay a dream and a vision. So at heart, I am a teacher, I am pragmatic. Children are in classrooms, they need to be taught. Teachers are in universities, they are ready to be trained. What and how do we support this shift in the practices of the classrooms towards a mathematics that can be more equitable, can be more accessible, and most important, more relevant to learners' individual needs and our society's needs? We have to find the balance between these two. So the first area I'd like to discuss, there are a number of, we could call them vision, they are vision statements. They are documents that sort of help us to set a path, if you like, for where we think we need to take the curricula and the assessment of that curricula in our countries. And this OECD report, which is not new, it has been around 5 years now already, was seeking to set that vision around what is the nature of the education that learners will need around the world in 2030. You know, what should we be aiming for? It is, you know, 7 years. It is enough time. I mean, when this was reported, it was 12 years. Now it is only 7. But what are the changes that we might want to think about in our school systems that would lead us towards a future that is more suited to the environment in which our young people are growing into, and also, very importantly, the needs of our countries, the needs of us as a global community, particularly to address uncertainty. And you do not need me to say just how uncertain things are in the world, particularly over the last 3 or 4 years. The combination of the global coronavirus pandemic, which had a massive impact on schooling and what we think about as schooling, and how we think about technology in the role of education and schooling, alongside huge challenges around changes in climate, changes in the economic security of many, many countries. We are in very, very uncertain times. And we can see actually our politicians need high-level mathematical skills and understanding to be able to make decisions for us on our behalf in order to navigate countries through this. But if we take it to the level of young people, you know, they all will grow and take their part in society. And we want them to be in those roles with a really strong base on some of the mathematical ideas that are very key to decision making. You know, whenever we come to big decisions, it always comes down to thinking about money, thinking about equity, thinking about the population as a whole. These are things that challenge us mathematically, all of us. Our best mathematicians and statisticians and data analysts have these very high level skills to help us to make sensible decisions. In the family, we make sensible decisions around our finances, around, you know, the way in which we think about our lives. And we know that families that are more numerate will prosper well, and prosper in a financial sense, but also prosper with respect to their well-being, their happiness, their ability to thrive in the world in which we're in. So it's huge, this challenge that we have to think about. What's the sort of mathematics that we would like to put at the heart of the school system? This expectation that all, or the very vast majority of learners will achieve these certain competencies in mathematics, such that we have a population that can thrive and prosper in the world, in the future. So it's more than just the individual getting a good job, getting individual qualifications, being better than the other child in the class. We have this sort of different way of thinking about collective a responsibility to create teams who can solve challenging problems. And I think this is one of the things I noticed in my own country. One of the responses to coronavirus was we had these expert teams who were the virologists, they were the doctors, they were the politicians who had to understand the data to make decisions, they were the statisticians and the data analysts who were looking at real-time data around cases and how to respond to that. These were very mixed disciplinary teams. They didn't just go to one group and ask for the answer. So this example is a very global, huge one. But if we take this at the local level, a local community with a challenging situation to address, how do the students contribute to the decision making, and how does their mathematics support local decisions to make? So, you know, at every level, mathematics is seen as important and valued and purposeful. So it's a huge ambition. So let's think a little bit more about that. Now, obviously, the OECD was looking at this from a global perspective. If I just tell you what we are doing in the UK at the moment, we are in the middle of a project that is being led by our Royal Society and our advisory committee on maths education, and it is called the Mathematical Futures Project. And this is because with it, we have a good realization that we need to rethink the mathematical competencies that citizens need to thrive in the future in the way I have hopefully just described. But how do education systems develop these competencies? So if we have some shared understanding of what these competencies are, how do we change the curriculum? How do we rethink the assessment, the way in which we assess and what we assess? And how do we rethink the training and support we provide to our teachers in order that we can move to this other way of doing things? Is it a radical change, or is it a more iterative change where we evolve? And these are big dilemmas. Many systems go for radical change. We turn the curriculum on its head. We turn the assessment system on its head. It creates a huge shock in the system for teachers, for parents, for learners. We often sacrifice a year or two cohorts of learners while everybody gets to grips with the new approaches. It's risky, and there are some children who suffer, undoubtedly. The teachers are not so familiar with new ways of doing things. The parents are unsure how to support their children anymore. Or do we try to shift slowly? These are big challenges for us. But I think we can see that shifts happen anyway. So if we look at the mathematics teaching of now in many countries, it does not look quite the same as 10 years or 15 years ago or 20 years ago. But then some things look exactly the same. So things do change naturally because the world is evolving and the resources change and our knowledge and understanding of the mathematics and the mathematics we are teaching develops. But how does the system help this to happen or hinder it from happening? So these are the big challenges. And I think it's clear to see that there is no time to waste on this one. We do have to act. And I think it's easy to stand back and think about acting because it's such a big decision to make. But we can all make small changes, particularly teachers. In some ways, teachers, you are the most empowered to begin to move in this direction. Because you are in your classrooms every day with the learners. You are, I would say, at the chalk face, at the point where we can have a huge impact while we wait for the system to change. So I wanted to just highlight the urgency here. Now, many curricula around the world and many assessment tests, examinations that assess that curricula are still posing problems which are mainly what we would say procedural. So we have some technique or some procedure that we want children to master. We use all sorts of resources to help them develop understanding to be able to master that technique. But essentially, the examinations are there to test how well they have mastered various techniques, and their performance is based on essentially correct answers. So the value we put on the system is getting the answer correct in a particular way for a particular purpose. Now, this is me holding up my iPad to a very typical numerical problem, in this case, that a student may face. This is a question from an examination for all of our age 16-year-olds in England. So you will recognize many problems like this, and you can substitute a problem from primary or a problem from advanced mathematics and imagine holding your iPad over the top of that particular problem. Now, with one very accessible, freely available software, this is Microsoft Maths, about 4 seconds later, once it had recognized that problem, it not only gives me an evaluation of it. So it literally gives me the answer as a numerically. It also gives it to me in another representation, the factor representation. It also shows some other problems that might be similar. If I was a student and curious, I might want to go and explore those. But this is the technology right now. With an iPad or a camera and the software, I can just hold my camera to the problem and in seconds get a correct answer. Okay, now how do we respond to that? Many countries are spending millions of dollars creating what we call proctoring software. Now, this is the software that means that they lock out any opportunity for children or learners to cheat by using these sorts of tools to solve their maths homework or to sit an examination or a test. So the response is to try to ban, if you like, access at any point in the school system to these sorts of tools, because essentially they allow a student to cheat. Okay, let me leave that with you for a moment. By the way, if I hadn't got, if I was not working from a printed version of my question, if I had a problem such as this one, if I just show you this short video, you can see just how easy it is to get a solution. So there's my problem on paper. And I really do just pick up my device. It doesn't matter what it is. This is an iPad. I can be on a smartphone with exactly the same free software. System reads it. And there's my solution. Now, this is a graphical problem, and look how sophisticated this is. Not only do I get the solution in 3 different forms, I've got the methods. So this, for me, is a teaching tool. This has become a teaching tool. This allows me to explore different ways of solving the problem and also offers me a graphical representation. So I'll be honest, if I'm a teacher in this day and age, I would be using tools like this to get students into the problem. And sorry, it gets even better in one respect, because I can also, I'll pause my video there, I can also handwrite if I have a tablet now and I have a stylus. So I'm not using my normal pencil here, I'm using my Apple Pencil. I can just handwrite that same problem and do exactly the same steps. So every single route that a student might use to work on a very traditional test question is in the same way. So pressing that go there would allow me to solve that problem in the same way. Let me get on. So is this a problem? And you know, initially when you see things like that, you think, oh my goodness, this is going to really mess things up for us. Here we have, you know, we will never know if students' work is their own anymore. But even if in the class or in the examination, we can use proctoring software to lock out access, they can go home and do their work there. So we've kind of devalued everything we work towards in our maths education system. If the problems children want to solve in the examination can be done in seconds by a machine. Now, this is not new. When I was at school, which is in the 1970s, we used paper-based log tables in order to do more complex calculations, and those that involved trigonometric ratios, and those that involved, and I'm just going to my drawer because I was one of the first students who was allowed to use one of these. And this is the very first commercially available calculator. So I can see my background's not letting me show this. This is a TI 30. It came out in the 1970s. This in the 1970s cost $60. So I was incredibly privileged that my father bought one of these for the family. He was an engineer, bought one of these for the family such that, you know, we could use this new technology. Now, I coincidentally was one of the first students in the UK that was allowed to use that technology in the examination. So this just meant that instead of, and any of you who remember using log tables, instead of doing complex calculations looking up log tables, which was time consuming, we could get to the answer once we knew what the calculation was very, very quickly. And obviously, if we were proficient with the calculator, get a correct answer. Now, we do not question the use of calculators in advanced mathematics for doing the, I would say, the drudgery of solving the end point of the problem, producing the numerical answer. This is widely accepted, but it wasn't always. And in the same way, we might decide that some of these procedures, we no longer need to know. Every student does not need to know every step of every procedure. They need to know when a problem requires such a procedure. So right now we tend to give students problems to solve. What if part of their mathematical work is coming up with the right problem or the right expression of the problem that needs to be solved? Now, we call this application. And it's interesting because in many examinations around the world, we have problems which require students to apply some procedure in order, they're worded problems often. They require you to work out what the calculation or the procedure needs to be before you then solve it successfully. Well, in some ways, we shift the emphasis to these sorts of problems because you can only use those technologies once you have a clear statement of the task or the problem that you need to solve. So one way in which we can re-image numeracy, it's not about following the procedure to get the correct answer. We can outsource that to technology, which is quicker, on the whole, more reliable and accurate, and frees our human thinking and our human brains to do the more important part of that process. So mathematics in schools is less about us providing very, very tightly defined problems of the type I was showing there, but more about working with realistic contexts and real challenges that require mathematics and working with the students to develop the statement, if you like, for which the solution is then trivial because the machine can perform it. So this idea of, well, what do we do in the maths lessons then? If we're going to take the emphasis off right answers, correct answers, procedures, drill and practice of those procedures, then we need to be doing other things. So what I'd like to do is give some examples of the sort of mathematics that might be there. And I will reference the Cornerstone Maths materials, which we're delighted we have a project between UCL and in Indonesia that is taking some of this work forward. So if we think about just summing up on how do we get there in terms of this huge change? Yes, the curriculum has to change. Yes, the way in which we assess that curriculum has to change too. We cannot think of one without the other because we know that the assessment drives much of what happens in schools because teachers want their learners to be successful and the learners need to be successful. Teachers, and I put lifelong in here because, I started to learn to teach a long, long time ago, and there is not much of what I learned there that is still as relevant as it was then. So when I trained to teach mathematics, it was at the beginnings of the journey with technology. Now, we are in a very different place. So lifelong professional learning for teachers is critical. And because of this huge opportunity we have to embrace educational technologies, we need this extra layer of the education technology strategy within the country, within the nation, that is helping to support and drive technology into the schools. So that has many other things to think about, but we do need the sector, the educational technology sector, which operates as a private entity in many countries, to be working in partnership with government to support some of these changes. So Cornerstone Maths, and I never apologize that you might be seeing Cornerstone Maths again. You've seen some of these slides before because there's always more to see. But just to say a little bit about Cornerstone Maths, it is not a whole curriculum for mathematics. What we worked on in this project is developing just 3 curriculum units that address topics that we all know are hard to teach. But also can come alive if we use some context through which to teach these particular topics. And what we have done is we've created 3 of these units that are between 8 and 12 hours of teaching. And these are aimed at learners in the lower secondary age. So in the UK, that for us is 11 to 14 years old. And the idea about this project was to take existing uses of technology that we knew were very impactful in helping children to understand the concepts and work in more challenging problem-based contexts, and look at how we could put these together with a package of teacher, professional learning and support so that it could scale into every classroom in the country. Often when we see technology being demonstrated by very proficient people, we look at it and think, oh yes, but I could never do that in my classroom, or that is not realistic for all of our teachers to work so fluently with this amazing GeoGebra file, or we can have the aspiration could be too far away from most teachers. So we were very keen to develop something that all teachers could use in their classroom with their learners. And as I mentioned, it is a project with a long history. The work on this started back in 2011, so nearly 10 years ago. And even then, it was based on 5 or 6 years of previous work in the US and in the UK. And the first phase was to develop these 3 curriculum units, which have been through evaluation and iteration to ensure that they worked well in our case, in English classrooms. Having done that, we focused on the teachers. We knew we had the materials right for the learners, but we had to think carefully about how do we understand the sort of knowledge and practice the teachers would need in order to be able to use these materials well. So the second project was focused on understanding the teachers' needs and developing professional development resources that would support teachers to be confident and build their competence to use these sorts of dynamic technologies. We're now in the middle of 2 new projects. As Dr. Farida mentioned, we are working with SEAMEO on a SEAMEO funded project in Indonesia, and we are also collaborating with the National Taiwan Normal University in Taiwan. They see a very interesting application of Cornerstone Maths, which is actually to adopt them in English and use them to support the bilingual teaching of school maths in the lower secondary age. And that's an ongoing project we will be reporting some papers from. But the early pilots, it's looking a very promising way to bring bilingual STEM teaching into the classrooms. And that might be something of interest across Indonesia at some point as well. So before I show you the software, there are 3 theoretical ideas that underpin the work. One is, we are not about technologies that just explain things to students or just give students a tool to drill or skill a particular procedure. So to do practice examples and maybe get some dashboards of right answers or feedback on how to improve. There are many of those softwares that exist, but we are actually interested in those that transform the way that learners and teachers work with their mathematics. So these are tools that really force you to think deeply about your own understanding of mathematics as a teacher. And that is really necessary. And that is really important when we come to use digital tools. I have understood mathematics better as I have worked with digital tools over the years than I was ever understood when I was a school student or even a young teacher. So, this openness that we may think we understand deeply how mathematics is connected and how the ideas complement or work with each other, but using these digital tools opens your eyes very wide to things you thought you understood, but maybe not so well. And that's really important. The second theoretical idea is about how things scale. So, you know, it's great to have one very robust set of materials as we do, but without understanding how we can bring those materials into hundreds of classrooms, thousands of classrooms in a particular country or in a particular region is critical, because otherwise they do not get used. And we see the cupboard of shame in many Western well-resourced schools where technologies are still there but never used. And then finally, when we are working with teachers in the professional development, we coined this idea of a landmark activity. And this is because often we have materials that are many, many hours long. And even in professional development, we cannot go through every single one because we do not have enough time for that. But we need to support teachers to be able to use every single activity. Choosing a few landmark activities enables to really focus in on the key ideas, and everybody is focused into the same place. And this is helpful. And I'm going to be showing one of the landmark activities next. So meet Shaky, and Shaky is the little character you can see on the number line. And Shaky is named after the very, very first robot that was ever built at Stanford Research Institute in the United States. So there's some lovely videos of Shaky. He was a robot and he really did shake. He was not so stable on his legs. But Shaky is the character we use in this particular investigation. And this is I'm going to play a video now just to let you see how this software works, and then I'll say a little bit about the way in which we've constructed the materials. So if I start to play the video, first thing you see is there is a lot going on the screen. So make sure I've got to go. There's a lot on the screen. So we have a graph, we have a data table, we have something called an equation. This is the first activity where students meet that word. We have Shaky, and we have these video controllers. When I press play, some things start to happen. And your eyes will all go to different places. Some of you will just be fixated on Shaky. Others will notice things going on the graph. Others may have noticed that the data table was showing some interesting features. Look at the graph. Look at the data table. Notice where Shaky is. Now, this sort of getting to know these representations is really important because without it, we can't really make sense of the mathematics. I'm using the video step functions now to step through second by second. And you can see now this idea that these are all interconnected relationships and representations, sorry. Now I've hit the edit button and you may have noticed some things appear on the screen. So as soon as I start to decide to edit, I have the opportunity, and you'll notice that when I drag things, other things are changing. Now this is me whizzing through the functionality of this environment. In the professional development and in the lessons, we do this over many hours, and for the students, it's over several lessons that they come to know this set of representations. But underneath it is really understanding how linear functions in the context of motion enable you to understand speed, distance, and time, and the way in which the different parameters in the equation, you can see me editing some values, change the way that Shaky behaves. Now, I would love to give you hands-on to this now, because you individually will be curious how to interact with this software to produce different scenarios for Shaky. I can hide and show representations, which is useful when you're teaching to help students to focus. I can also drag Shaky himself. I'm editing now and dragging Shaky. And it doesn't matter what I do, it is all, the relationships are connected and fixed and mathematical. So that gives you an idea of the power of what is a free web-based software with a set of materials that sit behind it to support students to understand these ideas. And to put the context on it, the task is very open for the students. They're going to be creating a motion game, that is the context for the work they're doing, and they need to work out how to program this particular resource to get robots that move at different speeds. It's as simple as that. And the materials are very engaging for learners. And I have to say, you know, I have had the opportunity to be in classrooms for over many years, and Cornerstone Maths classrooms were always busy working classrooms with students who, sorry, I'm just struggling to move off to the next slide. Let me just get my screen going. My computer seems to have decided to go to sleep. Let's try it another way. Next. Sorry, having seen these materials in hundreds and hundreds of very diverse classrooms in the UK, what's so interesting is how engaging they are for the students. So when the students have their hands on the technology and they have tasks that are prompting them to create scenarios in order to solve problems, produce work to share with their teacher, with their colleagues, it's incredibly empowering with regards to the students' autonomy to learn mathematics. So every Cornerstone activity has a context, and that is in the accompanying student workbook. And the context is then supported by having a simulation, the graph, the table of values, the equations, and we have these big mathematical ideas that run through the sequence of work, and we have some design principles for how we created this particular software. So that's an example from Cornerstone Maths. Now, when we worked in the classroom with teachers, it's not so easy as a teacher to begin to use these sorts of resources. It's really, it challenges them on their practices. And we developed a set of, if you like, teacher skills or competencies that we know need to be within the professional learning. So from watching the more expert teachers, we could begin to understand what it was, the practices of the teachers that enabled students to engage deeply with these resources. And there were some basic practices, and there were some more advanced practices. And these took time for the teachers to develop these practices. And it's something that we have to be aware of. Our teachers took 18 months to 2 years after they had started to work with this project to feel really proficient, that they were in charge and driving the dialogue in the classroom with the learners. The learners were busy, but the teachers' practices definitely needed time to evolve. So to finish, I have just a couple of slides where to just talk about some of the things that are important in getting there. One thing is, really being aware of how teachers' practices develop. So obviously professional development helps. We learn on our own. There is much self-directed opportunity right now. We learn with others. We learn as we choose lessons and design and adapt lessons, but actually we learn most as teachers when we are teaching in the classroom with the technology. So we have to take a risk. We have to have a go. We have to be prepared to have lessons that maybe do not feel so comfortable to us in order to learn. This is critical. And my own PhD thesis was on exactly this topic. I have this construct of the hiccup, which means these little things that go wrong when we are using these technologies in the classroom are really critical moments for us to learn as teachers. And I have a theoretical framing for my thesis. I put the reference at the end, but this idea is that, these things that go wrong, these perturbations are really the point at which we begin to learn about how these technologies help us to develop our practice, how these technologies help learners to really understand the context that they are in. So the hiccups are good. I use the word hiccup because hiccups are annoying. We don't like them particularly, but they are not fatal. They do not kill us. We can come through them, hence the choice of the word. And I'm just going to move to two last prompts, because I'm very aware that I need to finish. So let me just skip a slide or two. I just want to offer two things out. I said, how do we get there? One thing I think is to think about what we would call a school maths healthy eating plate. When we think about our food, often we have this sense of what a healthy plate of food would look like. It has some protein, it has some carbohydrates, it maybe has some fats, it definitely has some vitamins and minerals, and there is this idea that there is a balance. Now, what does the school maths healthy eating plate look like? And I take this as a learner-centric approach. What is it we want students to do in their time during the maths curriculum? Now, I put some ideas here, but it is for all of us to think about, we know all of the things I have there are important, but we also may have missed some. We also may not have the proportions right at different ages or phases of education. So are there times when we get near to examination where we know we will spend more time practicing the tests? Are there times when we have more time for exploration? What sort of mathematics do we want learners to produce? So these are key questions. What does the school maths healthy eating plate need to look like for those learners of the future, for that 2030 vision? And then really importantly, when we construct curricula, we focus very much on the sort of competencies, what it is we want the outcomes to be. What is it students must know, students must learn? But do we think about what students need to do mathematically in that curriculum to get there? And I offer here a lexicon of English words that have all come from thinking about what it means to do mathematics, from research projects, from curriculum documents. This is my personal collection of those verbs that describe what we want to do when we are working in a mathematical context. And I think what's interesting here is we often don't use these verbs very critically, or we don't use them at all when we are constructing the curriculum. And having that learner-centric view of what is it we need them to be able to do really helps us to think about the sort of resources that will be needed to enable students to get there. And you may not have spotted them, but I've included in this list the words which relate to, sorry, I'm still having problems with my slides. Just come down here. The words that relate to, sorry, come back, Mum. The words that relate to using technology. So in that example I was showing, dragging variables, manipulating, interpreting, representing, choosing representations, these things happen when you're in a dynamic mathematical environment. So as we are using technology, the sort of things we do when we are learning mathematics and engaging with mathematics will change too, specific to that technology. So I think I'm going to finish there. I had a couple more examples which we will save for another time. I have included my references if anyone would like the slides afterwards. I'm very happy to share them with the video clips for you to look at again. But otherwise, I will stop my screen share there. Sorry, I know I did go a few minutes over. I hope that's not a problem. But Dr. Farida, shall we come back to you? Thank you.
Thank you very much for a very insightful presentation, Professor Allison. And then here it seems that we got some questions in the chat box, but let me read one by one. So this is very interesting topic about the technologies. And then we will start with the first question from Hisham Hidayatullah. Okay. The question is, how to combine mathematic tools or technology with the real teachings in face-to-face teaching in order to develop a level of thinking for our students. Okay. So because we aware about the addictions of many of the students they got some addiction of games or of the internet itself. Even though not addiction, but sometimes it's very distractions, right? So could you please give the answer for Mr. Hisam from Batam,
Yes,
Indonesia?
most certainly. Yes. I mean, at the end of the day, if I'm a teacher or I'm a school leader and I'm making decisions about the technologies that we want to bring into our schools or our classrooms, we always need to have a clear purpose and some clear objective or sense for how that technology is going to help us to enhance our children's mathematical learning. So I think the number one is, we have to be responsible. Parents look to us, and we have to be the ones that can choose and justify with a good rationale the technologies we use. What's happened, and obviously I have a lifetime in this field, so I have seen how things have evolved. There is no doubt that the advent of more affordable devices, widespread Wi-Fi, increasingly widespread Wi-Fi, the cost of data and devices coming down everyone is inundated, everyone. And it is for us as the educationalists to put the steer on the students' use of technology towards the resources and tools that align with the objectives of the school or the classroom. So, I am not afraid to be authoritative in that voice, because people are looking to us for that guidance. Now, that means that the students are part of that conversation. And, I've been in classrooms where they try to lock out access to phones. They try to lock out, students come into the school and put their phones in a locker for the day. They cannot use them in the classroom. And yet they have this most powerful learning device. And we tell them that actually, no, the teacher knows best, or our curriculum is best. So there's somewhere between. And I think it is about having, we have to go on this journey with the parents and the children to help everybody to understand what moderate use is and what the use is that we expect in a school setting. And we do have to help parents to have the same conversations at home. Our parents, I think, this is a good example. Where does the state dictate what parents should or shouldn't do? Where do we, as the main conduit to parents through the school community, help everybody? I'm a parent and a grandparent. I have these problems too. I have grandchildren who have phones in their hand for 20 hours a day if they could. And it's not easy to have those conversations, but it's really important that we do. So I think, ultimately the answer to this question is having a responsible approach that embraces that it's not easy. We may think we can control in the school. We can't control what children do out of school, but we have to have a strong dialogue. And we have to agree locally the right way forward for our context.
Okay, thank you. So the involvement of the family, parents, and the regulation to make the students much more responsible. I think that's the conclusions. Thank you so much. And then we next go to Mr. Alvin questions here. Mr. Alvin, this is from Philippines. Professor Alison, he mentioned that in the third world country like Philippines, where the public schools has no internet connection yet, and then the teachers, they need to provide all the technology by their own money, then how the technology integration can be maximized despite all the limitations about the resource that they have? So could you please share based on your experience?
It's such an important question. And I mean, I'm sorry, I will sound old here, but when I began teaching, there was no data projector. There was no internet. I had one lone computer in my classroom, and I would manage this amazing resource by organizing my classroom with like a circus, whereby at certain times, groups of students in threes would come and work at the computer, and it was absolutely possible to open access. I wasn't able to do whole class teaching. The screen was too small, the software was very immature. But you know, actually the history of how technology has come into classroom began there. So, I mean, there are two things I would say on that one. Look to the modern versions. I go to my drawer of tricks, because I'm sitting next to me with all my equipment since the 1990s. These are one of the most powerful digital tools ever designed. And I'm sorry, I've got the same issue with the screen here. It's a graphing calculator, very low cost. And you know, that was a technology now, because it's deemed to be old, that is very, very cheap to acquire. And it's one of the most successful technologies in terms of impacting on children's mathematical understandings that's ever been evaluated. So I would think about the purpose. There's definitely a trajectory, and that, you know, it is likely that access will improve. It's likely that more devices will become available. But for what the resources you have right now, there really are very well researched and effective activities that are possible to do with a very low rate, low access to technology. So I do think, you know, there is a vision, and there is this this route which is not inside the gift of the school right now, because the resources are not there. But in some ways that buys you time. And the flip side of that is countries that rush to do too much too soon, with big injections of money, and many of these projects fail. So we've seen, you know, big district and school iPad initiatives fail because the resource arrives, but without the support and training for the teachers, without necessarily the time to think about the right mathematical resources to use on those iPads. And it isn't an effective strategy. So it's about purpose, clear purpose for the technology, and it's about choosing technologies that have probably been around quite a long time, and looking at the different classroom approaches that you can share the resource around students in a more equitable way. I work in South Africa with teachers, and it's exactly the same scenario. They are buying their own laptop, their own data projector, and they can do a lot if they have electricity. Their problem there is they do not have reliable electricity. So we need the other low tech solutions as well. And there's some really interesting work around low tech, no tech, high tech, which particularly in Bangladesh, if you have a look at the digital education strategy there, it's starting with, right, what do we do with no tech? What's the low tech next step towards the high tech? And having that vision. But I think the main thing is that you are looking to do something, not to wait for some directive. You know, those teachers who buy their own laptop and computer, so laptop and data projectors, will be the innovators in the country of tomorrow. So I would encourage and support.
Yeah, I can agree more with you, Professor Alison. So the teachers who have initiative, they will be the leaders in their countries. So the conclusion is adopt and adapt. Yeah, depend on the situation in your country. We still have two more questions, Professor Alison. Next from Miss Amy Kurniati. She asking about what mathematic competencies that will needed by the most of the primary school student in Indonesia as developing country. Probably does the students here need the same skills with other advanced country, as you mentioned in the beginning of your presentations about the new skills in 2030? Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. It's a fantastic question. First of all, I will say that all of my experience and most of my work is in secondary, so I don't consider myself an expert in primary education, but I certainly think that the big shift we will see is in most countries in the world, the focus in primary education is on what we would call sort of basic numeracy and the basic addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and understanding of fractions in a generally quite procedural way. And the check on this is to look at the type of assessment questions children are asked at the end of primary education. You rarely see what we would call a worded problem that requires more than 2 steps. You know, a 2-step problem is considered to be very challenging in many countries. And remember, in those 2 steps, there are usually 2 calculations. So what's interesting is the 2-step problems, which are really the goal for many countries around the application of the 4 operations of mathematics and working with different types of numbers, fractions and decimals predominantly, and whole numbers, that those 2-step problems really should be the starting point. Because if the ability to solve the calculations is, there's a level of fluency there. We definitely want a level of fluency with being able to estimate, approximate, get a sense of whether the answers or where the problem solution is going is about right. The actual solutions are those that could be outsourced. Now, long division is a very problematic area around the world, teaching whole cohorts of children long division by the age of 10 or 11 is a goal in many curricula. But we know it takes hours and hours and hours of curriculum time. And if we do the analysis of the correct answers in the national assessments, still most children are unsuccessful. So for long multiplication and long division, I personally think they should be outsourced. They should have been outsourced 20 years ago. But you know, if we're teaching people something that on the whole they get wrong, there is no logic to not give them a tool that helps them to get that right. So this is a debate, I know, a worldwide debate, but my personal view is we've long should have rethought some of those objectives which really become assessment objectives, and think about, right, is it realistic that this is a goal? Can we support more children to success? But we still focus on number fluency. So this understanding of correctness around calculation is important, but it isn't all about the right answer. And this is where the time, we would buy back time from the curriculum to focus on these more challenging areas, the problem solving, the context-based problems, but by doing that, supporting the students to have fluency in the methods that they have learned. So I think it's a difficult one. The other big lack in the primary curriculum is on what I would call statistical understanding. And this is really about using real data and real messy data in ways that, if we think about the way in which we use graphs and graphics and statistical data and the importance of data in our lives, that rarely comes into many primary curricula. And the other aspect is really, we live in a 3-dimensional world. We hardly teach any 3-dimensional ideas in primary. So I think there are some areas that are missing, and we have to think about what comes out of the curriculum if we are then to think about what this more appropriate curriculum for the 21st century might look like. So just a few thoughts there, but as I say, that's with the caveat that I don't consider myself an expert in primary education.
Okay, so it is very, very interesting. Unfortunately, we ran off the time because we reached the limit. Actually, this is still one more question, but probably you can answer in the chat box because our time is up right now. Probably I just would like to remark the presentation today by Professor Alison that in line with the advancements of the technology right now, the demand of the skills, which is suitable for the 21st century, has been changes. And then in education, we need to transform our education, our curriculums, and the way we use the technology, because the old fashions of teaching mathematics is not suitable anymore, because there are so many technology arise, and then it can cover all the procedural skills. And the teachers need to think about how we can use the technology for much more important focus on the skill, which is very, very needed in the 21st century. Okay, that's all the sessions with the Professor Alison. Please give a big round applause for Professor Alison for her presentation today. And now I would like to give the time to the Mr. Master of Ceremony. Okay, thank you very much.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Farida Nurhasana, for chairing the keynote session 4. And thank you for Professor Alison Clark-Wilson for the insightful presentations. Please once again give a round big applause. Dr. Farida, please remain on the stage. We are now presenting the online certificate of appreciations for Professor Alison Clark-Wilson. Once again, thank you very much, Professor Alison Clark-Wilson, for the presentation entitled Reimagining Numeracy Learning Through the Students' Use of Technology.
Next, we would like to invite the Symposium Chairman, Mr. Suhananto, to hand over the certificate of appreciation to our moderator, Dr. Farida Nurhasana.
Thank you very much. Once again, thank you, Professor Alison Clark-Wilson. Thank you, Dr. Farida. And Mr. Suhananto, you may return to your seat. And once again, please give a round big applause for the keynote session 4. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come now to the end of this today's symposium. I'm certain that everyone is satisfied with every session and gain the insightful knowledge from this symposium.
Our sincere appreciation to the all prominent keynote speakers of 7 East May 2022, Dr. Kamila Swaran Jayaraja, Dr. Melianti Dave Tau, Dr. Diki Susanto, Professor Kees Hookland, Professor Trena Wilkerson, and also Professor Alison Clark-Wilson.
Also to the notable moderators, Dr. Farida Nurhasana, Dr. Aryadi Wijaya, Ibu Nur Fitriana, Bapak Wahid Fitri Albar, and beloved participants both online and offline. In the moment, we will proceed to the closing ceremony of the 7th East May 2022. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Honorable Director of SEAMEO QITEP in Mathematics, Dr. Sumardiano. The Honorable Director of SEAMEO Simolek, Dr. Wahyudi. The Honorable Dr. Colin Mackenzie from Edinburgh Napier University. The Honorable Mr. Krishna Bayu from 11 Maret University. The Honorable Deputy Director for Administrations of SEAMEO QITEP in Mathematics, Dr. Susetyo Widyasmoro. The Honorable Deputy Director for Program of SEAMEO QITEP in Mathematics, Dr. Farida Nurhasana. The Honorable the Symposium Chairman, Mr. Suhananto. The Honorable Sikkim Management and Specialists, Esteemed Committee, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Finally, we have come to the final agenda of the International Symposium on Mathematics, Education and Innovation. It's May 2022. And it is my great pleasure and honor to welcome you all in this afternoon in the closing ceremony. This event is made possible by the supporting from the SEAMEO Secretariat, the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology, Republic of Indonesia, and I'm sorry, thank you. Finally, we have come to the final agenda of the International Symposium on Mathematics, Education and Innovation is May 2022. And it is my great pleasure and honor to welcome all of you again in this closing ceremony. This event is made possible by supporting from the SEAMEO Secretariat, the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology of Republic Indonesia, and Sikim's host institution Balai Besar Guru Penggerak Provinsi Daerah Istimewa Yogyakarta.
During the 2-day symposium, we experienced the international presentations from all the speakers and insightful parallel and workshop sessions. To bring back our memory of Symposium, we proudly present you a glimpse of Symposium journey. Please enjoy.
Calling from Yogyakarta. My name is Nurianisi. I come from Sukabumi, North Sumatra. I am the head of SLD Akula Timur, Sikkim Institute. I am good at the activity institute. I am happy in spending the manuscript that I am grateful that I can be participant very interesting, and I hope to be able to participate in the next activities. Thank you very much.
Selamat pagi, Yogyakarta. I am Mr. Glenn Rafael Cruz from Manila, Philippines. Selamat tinggal, Yogyakarta. Personally, I don't know what to say. Until after this day, I'm still overwhelmed at what Indonesia gave me. Diverse culture, scenic and beautiful places, sumptuous food, and most importantly, amazing, kind, accommodating, and hospitable people of Indonesia. This symposium gave an opportunity for me to learn about transforming universal learning. And not only that, it gave me more than what I had expected. To the organizing committee, most especially to Hanita, whom I asked a lot more about this event. Thank you for this opportunity and once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This event gives mathematic pictures not only Indonesia, but as well as the other Southeast Asian countries an opportunity to develop themselves for professional growth that I believe that will help them to move students to be globally competitive. I hope it won't stop here. I hope if given another chance, I will come back to Yogyakarta and spend more time to know more about its culture and its people. Now, one thing is I am certain about. Indonesian people are one of the nicest people on earth. Once again, thank you so much, SEAMEO, QITEP in Mathematics. Terima kasih.
So
What a wonderful memory of this today's symposium. I hope that you can share this happiness to your friends, your colleagues, and your family at home.
Yes, that's right, Mas Yoga. Or you can also share this happiness, our memory during 2 days to your social media. And we are most happy if you can also mention us SEAMEO QITEP in Math on Facebook and also Instagram.
Exactly, Mbak Lely. Once again, I would like to say thank you for your time for those who come in person. Thank you for the participant for Yogyakarta, Klaten, Kebumen, Purworejo, Sidoarjo, Bojonegoro, Bandung, Makassar, Ciamis, Medan, and other cities in Indonesia. Also, one participant from the Philippines, Mabuhay. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we will hear the committee report from the chairman of the symposium. We kindly invite to the stage Mr. Suhananto.
Okay, thank you. That's okay. The Honorable Dr. Wahyudi, Director of SEAMEO, Honorable Dr. Sumardiono, Director of SEAMEO QITEP in Mathematics, Honorable Dr. Farida Nur Hasanah, Deputy Director for Program SEAMEO QITEP in Mathematics, Honorable Dr. Susatyo Widyasmoro, Deputy Director for Administration of SEAMEO QITEP in Mathematics, invited guests, keynote speakers, moderators, presenters, participants, and committee. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. On behalf of the committee, I'd like to appreciate your engagement and active participation in this 2 days symposium. This opportunity allows me to give some reports concerning implementing the 7th International Symposium on Mathematics Education and Innovation 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, Alhamdulillah, SEAMEO Regional Center for QITEP in Mathematics, or often shortened to SEAMEO, has successfully conducted the 7th International Symposium on Mathematics Education and Innovation, Transforming Education by Reimaging Numeracy Learning, from 5 to 6 October 2022. This symposium has been participated by 100 offline participants and more 300 online participants. Generally, all participants have actively engaged in all activities. Furthermore, I'd like to thank all plenary speakers, keynote speakers, moderators, presenters, and participants who have joined this symposium. Dr. Melianti from Primary Education Teachers, Ministry of Education, Culture, Research, and Technology of the Republic of Indonesia, Dr. Kamaliswaran Jayaraja from SEAMEO Secretariat, Thailand, Dev Todd from Australian Council for Educational Research, Australia, Dr. Diki Susanto from Kelvin Institute of Technology, Indonesia, Professor Kees Hockland from University of Applied Science, Utrecht, the Netherlands, Professor Trina L. Wilkerson from National Council of Teachers of Mathematics USA, and Professor Alison Clark Wilson from UCL Knowledge Laboratory, University College London, United Kingdom. Also for the workshop, Dr. Renat Adi Nur Cahyono from Semarang State University, Indonesia, Christoph Venivesi from Javaskila University, Finland, Ms. Kelsey Zhang from FEX Robotics, Hong Kong, Mr. Wiworo from Professional Development Center for Educators in Special Region of Yogyakarta, and Mr. Bungkus Dias Prasetyo from Sikkim. Finally, I'd like to thank all the committee members for organizing this symposium and ensuring that it proceeded smoothly. We do realize that this program is far from being perfect. Thus, we apologize for the inconveniences and widely accept your feedback for the betterment of the same program in the future. I'm certain that you are all looking forward to getting back to your respective home. So I thank you once again for your participation and wish you all a safe journey home. I hope that you enjoy your stay here in our lovely city of Yogyakarta, as well as our conference. Lastly, congratulations and welcome to the big family of Sikkim. Don't forget to remember our story for 2 days. Please keep in touch with Sikkim and each of you. Thank you and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Mr. Suhananto, for delivering the committee report. Congratulations, Mr. Suhananto and the rest of the team for successfully organized this symposium.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, to officially close the 7th ISME, I'm cordially inviting the Director of Sikkim to proceed to the podium. Dr. Sumardiono, the floor is yours.
The Honorable the Director of SEAMEO Jakarta, Dr. Wahyudi, the Honorable our guest, Dr. Mackenzie, from Napier University, Scotland, the Honorable Deputy Director for Administration, Dr. Suseti Widyasmoro, Honorable Deputy Director for Program of Sikkim, Dr. Farida Nur Hasana, all keynote speakers, invited speakers, moderators, and esteemed presenters, and participants, and also the committee. Very good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. On behalf of Sikkim Regional Center for QITEP in Mathematics, I'd like to thank you, all the participants in the 7th International Seminars on Mathematics Education and Innovations, Transforming Educations by Reimagining Numeracy Learning at Professional Development Center for Educators, or BBGP, Balai Besar Guru Penggerak in a special region of Yogyakarta. Ladies and gentlemen, ISME is our biennial programs, which aim to foster the exchange of innovative ideas and strategy for mathematics teaching and learning in modern classroom. This international forum also provides an opportunity to mathematics educators and education personnel to foster collaboration and partnerships. We choose the topic of numeracy because we believe that numeracy is very important today as a part of literacy. That's the keynote speakers yesterday mentioned that numeracy is not as the part, but as the partners of literacy. And we know that recently, as the education policy by the Ministry of Education, Cultures, Research and Technology of Republik Indonesia, they have the policy about the Merdeka Belajar. This is include the policy about the numeracy and literacy also. And in the brief reasons in the reasons, we know that the numeracy is also important, as we know that this is a part of the 21st century skills. We know about the PISA, yeah, the assessment, the international assessment. It is also about the numeracy and literacy. So we think that this even the international symposium can give the participant the insights, the knowledge about the reasons, ideas, and innovative about the numeracy in learning. Ladies and gentlemen, as we all aware that the mathematics as the subject matter in schools usually face as the difficult subject, yeah, difficult subjects. And maybe you also agree about that the mathematics also scary, yeah, to our students, yeah. So we think that the numeracy as a part of mathematics, yeah, as part of mathematics can be taught in school, so they can perceive that mathematics have a beneficial for daily life activity. So I think this is the great beneficial of numeracy in mathematics learning. Ladies and gentlemen, in this moment, I'd like to express my gratitude to all speakers and also all participants of this symposium who have actively taken a part in giving suggestion, inputs about numeracy and others subject that related with it. I believe that you have some knowledge, insight, and initiative from this 2 days symposium and also workshops. And I also found that the participants come from various professions. Yeah, there are most of you as teachers, yeah, in schools. Others are the lecturer from the University of College. And special appreciation, yeah, I would give to the participant from Philippines. Yeah, they are the only participant from outside Indonesia. Please give big appreciation for them. Thank you very much for your come in this session, and maybe for the next two year symposium, you can come again, attend in offline mode. Yeah, I hope. And yesterday at evening, I challenged my committee to have a glimpse of memories of these symposiums. And as you have seen, they have a video, yeah, about your memory, and also testimony from a few of the participants. Please give appreciation and big applause for the committee. Yeah, thank you very much. And as a host, I would like to apologize to all of you, our speakers and participants, for any inconvenience during the 2 day symposium. We wish you all the best and hope that we can meet again for the next agenda, the next program from SEAMEO, especially for the next SEAMEO in 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, by reciting Hamdalah, yeah, I declare that the 7th International Seminar on Mathematics Education and Innovation, Transforming Education Mathematics by Reimagining Numeracy Learning, officially closed. Thank you very much for your attention. Please stay safe, stay healthy. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Sumardiono, for delivering the remark and officially close the 7th May 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, please once again give a round big applause. And now we will proceed to the photo sessions. We will have two group photo session. The first is the guests and virtual participants, and the second photo session is the guests with in-person participants. So for the virtual participants, kindly ask you to turn on your camera and put on the best smile to take this photo session in this closing ceremony.
For the offline attendees, I would like to invite the Director of SEAMEO, Simole, Director of SEACIM, Deputy Director for Administration, SEACIM, Deputy Director for Programs, SEACIM, and then the Honorable Dr. Colin Mackenzie, Mr. Krishna Bayu, the Chairman of Symposium, and the organizing committee. Please proceed to the stage. Mas Eko, how many slides that we have in this virtual room? 2 slides? Okay. So since we are not sure you belong to the first or second slide, so please hold your smile during this photo session. And please don't forget to turn on the camera. Put your best smile during this photo session. We are almost ready, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, for the first slide. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and for the second slide. 1. Okay, wait. For the second slide. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much for the virtual and the attendees, and for the invited guests, kindly proceed to have the second photo stations downstairs, please. Yes, the second photo session is
The second
invited
photo session
guests.
is the photo session with the offline participants.
Yes, for the offline participants.
We kindly invite the offline participant to stand up. Please be ready and don't forget to put your best smile. I will count 1, 2, 3. Okay, once again. 1, 2, 3. You can use the SEACIM sign. Okay. 1, 2, 3. The last one, freestyle. 1, 2, 3.
Yes, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the closing ceremony of the 7th SEAMEO. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to express our sincere appreciation to all of you and hope to see you again in the SEAGAME other programs. I am Lely Dian Puspita.
And I am Yoga Utama. Don't forget to always check our social media to get updated with SEAGAME's program. See you on the 8th May 2024. Stay happy, stay healthy, and stay connected with SEAGAME. And wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, for participants, we have an additional announcement. For offline participants, the certificate for you will be distributed after the events. You can check in the front of the hall. And for online participants, the certificates will be distributed a week after the event through a link that we send via email. So always check your email. And don't forget to fill the evaluation in the link that we showed in the chat box. And thank you. See you on the 8th SEAMEO and other SEAGAMES program. Salah kuku rotul itu peserta iya godaan GMP matematika betul iya pakai mana dulu sebelumnya kan ada Pak Nana saya yang ketiga bulan keempat reguler kelasnya ya siap juga mengenali tim teman siap kita sampaikan ya sebagai bukti fisik saya siap saya sampaikan ya terima kasih. Kayaknya memang
Pengumuman untuk teman-teman panitia berharap untuk berkumpul di panggung untuk foto bersama. Sekali lagi teman-teman panitia dimohon untuk menuju panggung untuk foto bersama.
Pak, kalau hari ini masih ada ISME.
Innalillahi wa Oh, serius?
Tadi ya.
Sekali lagi teman-teman panitia diharapkan menuju panggung untuk foto bersama.
Tapi zoomnya supaya udah keluar deh.
Mas Fandi, dimohon untuk berfoto di depan, Mas Fandi.